Hello there. Thank you for joining me once again. Today we're going to be doing the companion lesson/analysis video for last week's Whistle Down the Wind performance by Nick Heyward. Let's get right to it. Alright, so this song is not too complicated harmonically. Let's listen to the very beginning. Right off the bat, I can hear we have a major seventh there. Root note is an F, but I can hear the piano right there. I can hear that major seventh. That kind of vibe. And then we're going to go up to an A major. And that's going to be a recurring theme here. So the beginning, F major 7 to an A major. Now, once we hit the verse, let's take a listen. Oh, and by the way, I am playing the Whistle Down the Wind instrumental reprise, as it's called. So right off the bat, we're going to be going up to a C. It could be a sort of variation of that F major 7, but there's definitely a C and a G as outlined by the bass, which we'll cover later. So it's going to that A major. So you could embellish that C, and I do hear something going on there, like maybe a pretty second or a ninth, however you want to look at it, like a maybe up here and 2. So embellish it as you wish, but let's just call it a basic progression of C to A, both major chords. Let's continue. You can clearly hear there that the guitar rises up to that C sharp. Boing. And then after that, we get into, I suppose, the B section of the verse. And we stop right there at that A. And there's a run up on the piano, something like. And then we're into the B section chords, which are simply D to C. And then embellishments on the piano, like. So let's listen to that real quick. And it just keeps repeating that. And then the last chord is just hanging on that C. So you're hanging on that C, and then it just modulates. It jumps right to the chorus, which is E major. And the chorus is a bit interesting because the bass is going to pedal on the E, and even though there's movement in the bass, which again we'll cover later, it is really just centering on that E. So it's like an E pedal feel. And what I'm hearing is 2 E's, and then a B major over an E, and then an A major over an E. So outlining the chorus, I would play it or think of it like this. However, because of what the bass is doing and what the vocal melody is doing, we're going to interpret it like this. So there's this like 6th thing happening, and then the same thing here with like an A ninth, and then resolving to an E major. So that's how I hear the chorus, and that's how I would play it. Now, after that, we go back into the moody C to A. That whole thing. But the second time, it goes down to that F as the beginning of the second verse. Let's listen for that. So again, it's going to that F. Twice it does that. And then it goes back into the regular C. So right there it goes into the regular C pattern. And then we're back into another B section, just the D to the C, and the last chord of that section being a C with the run up to the modulation to and after that, it just repeats, carries out the chorus, and then you have a vamp section where it's just vamping on the E. And again, we'll go over it in the bass, but the bass is doing kind of a Motown-y like. And the only surprise left is at the very end, we go F major 7. And that's about it. All right, let's do some bass now. All right, here we are. It's bass time. So the song starts in F. Simple enough. Then we go up to an A. Then we kind of gently slide down a bit and go down to that F again. Now we get ready for the most complicated part of the entire song. And this is really the only reason you need a fretless in the song, aside from the beautiful tone you would get by using a fretless. The harmonics are pretty difficult to do on a fretted bass because for whatever reason, for whatever science is behind this, it's not easy to slide a harmonic on a fretted bass. So the first slide we're going to do is, and there may be other places in the fretboard where you can do this, but I'm doing it up here. So that would be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th fret up on the G string, and you slide it down here. And pretty quickly after that, then you're going to do a regular slide, just a fretted note here, from B to C sharp on that same string. And then hit the A. And then you're going to close that out by simply doing a harmonic slide on those very same notes. Let me do that a little better, like this. So the whole thing would be so it's a 3-parter. You hit that F, well, 4-parter if you hit the F. 4-parter. First, second part, slide down. Third part, and then fourth part. That last one's always a little tricky. You really need to goose it there. You really need to hit it hard. So that really is the hardest part of the song, that sequence. It's an amazing sequence. It's really creative. Pino did a... So after that, we get into the main verse, and that is simply... and then the same pattern on an E. Very Motown, right? Of course, we're going to embellish it. Pino's going to embellish it. So what we're doing there, and this is the real beautiful part of the fretless bass, is going wah wah. Now you can do it up here. It's up to you, wherever your bass sounds best, wherever you feel it best. And then there's a pickup here. A, G, A, C, C. And getting out of the verse, you're just going to hang on that A. So let's listen for that. We haven't listened to the track in a bit. And then you're going to get right into the D to C part. So that's kind of the B section of the verses. And that, if you want to distill it to basic notes, is simply. Now what you will hear are tiny little ghost notes like. And for some reason, the second time he does it, the second line of that first time he does it, he goes. Just to sort of give it a different movement, but most of the times it's. Now the last time you just hang on that C. And then you go right into the chorus. Let's listen to the chorus. So the chorus, it's a little tricky only because the third E is on the beat. But just remember that you're going to start on top, go to the octave below, and then do that third octave up E on the beat. So, and after that, you're going to do the run. Let's just do the whole thing. So also notice that every time I play the G sharp, I hammer up into it. So instead of just going. Those are the notes, the basic notes, but you're going to embellish it if you can. Again, feel is most important. You can embellish that with a hammer up or a hammer on. It's a hammer on from the F sharp to the G sharp. So. You could also kind of slide it down a little bit if you're on a fretless, so like. Something like that if you fancy. So that's it. That's the chorus. And the only tricky part, which we kind of mentioned in the piano breakdown, is that out of that first chorus, you go into what you think is just the regular verse pattern, going from the C to the A. And you do, but then on beats 3 and 4, you go A, G, F, and you go to an F for the first part of the second verse. So if we're pretending we're going out of the first chorus, we're going to go. And then you're in the second verse. Let's listen for that. And when you go into that F, you can do that. That's what he does. 1, 2, 3, 4. To an A. And then to an octave A, sliding down. Second time he just goes bingo. Then up to the. And then we rejoin the regular pattern. And then you go into the B part. And then you go into a chorus, and that second chorus just goes into the vamp section. So you're going to do a regular chorus, and at the very end, you're going to do this Motowny kind of. And that vamps till almost the very end. Listen to that. So you can hear it really clearly there, and it goes with the string patterns that are doubling up, that dunk 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 dunk. Again, a very Motown-y kind of thing to do. So just try to lock in with that. And then the surprise is that at the very end, bam, you hit that F because you're on an F major 7, and that modulation, which really is just modulating back to the first chord of the song, ends the tune. Let's listen though, because I'm not sure if it's a low F or a high F. Yeah, to me that sounds like it goes to the low F. So that's about it. All right, till next time. Bye-bye.